In the tapestry of life, where every thread holds a story, America in Black and White emerges as a haven for the voices echoing through the heart of our communities. In this podcast, we wade through the rivers of our collective experiences, celebrating the vibrant hues of change brought forth by the whispers of hope and the roars of action. It's more than just a conversation. It's a journey into the heart of our society, illuminated by the light of those daring to dream and do. Join us, and let your voice be the melody that guides us toward a dawn where every color finds its place in the masterpiece of our shared destiny. Together, let's paint a future brimming with the positives that dwell in our minds and the actions that shape our world.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of America in Black and White, where we discuss the issues that are plaguing the underserved and marginalized communities, as well as how we can best serve those communities. Tonight, we're running a very special show, which is the year 2024 in review. Tonight, we have three special guests that will help us to understand some things that's transpired in 24 and what we can expect going into the new year. Tonight, we've got our first guest is Dr. Philip Neely. Dr. Philip Neely Jr. is a 22-year career law enforcement officer, having served in progressively responsible leadership and field positions in local law enforcement agencies. His 22-year tenure as a law enforcement professional has afforded him an opportunity to lead, train, and direct all functions of local government. He has experience in controlling and managing a budget of more than $27 million. The last 6 years of his law enforcement career detailed numerous roles in administration, managing, and supervising employees. Additionally, Dr. Neely is currently working in education, instructing classes, advising, and mentoring adult learners. Dr. Neely's educational background includes a Bachelor of Science in Criminology, Master of Science, Public Administration, and Criminal Justice. Dr. Neely is a graduate of the Georgia Law Enforcement Command College at Columbus State University and St. Louis University Command Officer Management Program. He has earned a doctorate of public policy and administration with an emphasis in management and criminal justice. Ladies and gentlemen, I now bring to the floor Dr. Philip Neely. Welcome to the show, Dr. Neely.
Well, good evening. Well, yeah, it's good evening. It is 6 o'clock. Good evening. I got confused there. Good evening. I'm glad to be here.
Yes, sir. How are you?
Best day of my life, sir.
Well, I'll tell you this. I'm happy to have you here as a guest on the show tonight. And hopefully, let me try to get this thing here to work properly because it's doing everything but the right thing.
Okay.
Let's see. And we do that. And oh God, this is like getting to be a little crazy. Here we go. There you go. There. I'm sorry about this. I'm trying to make this work right. And it's still, but at any rate, let's just get into the show.
Okay.
Sorry about this, sir. Come on, what is going on here? There we go. We can do that one. Okay, here we go. So, as we get into the show, I thank you for being here, especially with this year in review, because this is a very important year. For the people that we target as the show goes, but then also I think about what's happening going forward for African Americans in general. And I think you are definitely a great person to do this year in review because I'm sure there's a lot of knowledge that you could bring to this show that people can learn from and look forward to in 2025 and knowing some of the things that they need to do. So let me just ask you this. Reflecting on your experience in 24, What were some of the most significant challenges you faced in your roles as a mentor and educator?
You know, I'm excited about that question. And one of the things that come to mind off the back is that challenges I faced was seeing law enforcement in a negative light in the media and mentoring, knowing that people don't trust people.
Right.
You know, when you start thinking about it, I'm so grateful for everything that 2024 taught me and everything that I've learned and I'm still learning. People will support who they want to support. You know, we got children out here now, black men, black children. I call them men. They're young teenagers killing each other every morning. When I turn the television on, I see another killing of a young black man killing another black man in their own communities. And the government doesn't care. If they cared, they wouldn't have open carry laws. They don't have to get a concealed weapons permit or weapons to carry permit anymore. Everybody's walking around with a gun. Police can't stop them and ask them why they have a gun. Mentoring is so important. One of the first things I did years ago, I wrote this book about 2 years ago called When the Watchman Becomes the Watch, the New Policeman. What I talked about is how policing has changed over the years, right? We've started to look at it and normalize this sense of brutality, this sense of excessive use of force from George Floyd, where a cop stands on a man's neck for 9 minutes and nobody says anything. They thinks it's okay. Mentoring is very important. You know, we got to look at that and try to change that narrative as we look at our young youth and our young black men in our community. When you start thinking about black and white, look where we are now. They're making a comparison between what happened on January the 6th when Donald Trump left office, to comparison of what happened now, talking about providing pardons to these individuals. How does that look to our community? You know, the only ones you expect to show up, they often won't show up. The people you expect to show up, they often won't show up. Why? Because they don't want to see you succeed. You can't include people just to earn their support. And I think in 2024, I learned that. I tried to get a lot of people support when I was out mentoring, going to speak to groups at RYDCs with our youth detention centers, at the YMCAs, going to different schools, talking to youth about how policing affect their life, how one bad decision can change their life. And most people say, and especially the students, they ask me, Dr. Nina, what do you mean by how one bad decision can change my life? I say, you go out here right now and you're running with the wrong crowd. They go in and commit a crime and you didn't, but you with them. That's conspiracy. You with them. You're part of that crime. You're going to jail too. And look now, our own DA in our own community are charging black men with their lyrics.
Oh my God.
Hallelujah. Charging with their lyrics. So we're rapping about something just trying to entertain people and make money, whether they did it or not. The lyrics shouldn't tie into our communities. And these are things that we got to change. You know, I think if we get away from talking about ourselves and get away from talking ourselves out of God and what God had called us to do, I think that's what changes a change. I know we're not supposed to be too spiritual here, but prayer changes things.
No, this is not one of those platforms. So you're allowed to express whatever it is that's comfortable for you. So
yes, sir.
If it's not liked by those and those that feel offended, that's up to them. But we're not offended.
Yes, sir. And I think that when you stop talking yourself out of what God has called you to do, you can be greater than what you think you are. My goal was, I never thought I'd finish high school. I was told I was nothing. I was told I'd never be nothing. My grandmother always told me, you was great. You gonna be great. She was the only one that kept uplifting me. Everybody else said you couldn't do it. It wouldn't happen. Everybody in my family, you know, had gone to prison. So what are you saying, Philip? When I talk about this, I'm talking about black male mentors that entered my life, that saved me from the jails or being buried, right? I was on a path that was what I call a path of destruction. So that led me to what I looked at when I started thinking about the Echoes of Justice, another book I wrote. That Echoes of Justice talked about how those that have money succeed and those that don't fail, even if they're committing these crimes. You know, you go back and think about the number of crimes committed by individuals that are affluent and those that live in lower socioeconomic communities that have to take pleas. These are things that resonate in my mind. As a police officer, I've seen this over and over and over and over again. Young black male didn't commit the crime, But they said a black male in a stolen car, he bails out and run. They run into a neighborhood. They said, what's the lookout? He wearing a white t-shirt, black pants. He got dreads. That's half of the community. You pick up any black male just to get arrested, just to get that stat, you go back. Unfortunately for that young man, he had a pass. And now they're saying, well, I'm pretty sure you did it, even though the police officer said you did it, because of your pass. It led you to believe a local jury or a law enforcement to believe that you committed this crime. So those are things that just resonated with me in 2024 as I go forward to see the crimes that are being committed right now, children being put in jail. Think about a black man that's in a Greek organization, Phi Beta Sigma, at Clark Atlanta University, my alma mater. I went to Clark. And they put him in jail for a crime he didn't commit. He told him multiple times he didn't commit that crime. The DA indicted him. The police officer lied, got him indicted. All of a sudden, a witness came forward and said, this is not the guy. He sat in jail for 30 days. Now, if you're truly innocent until proven guilty, why do you lock me up first? And then I got to prove my innocence to guilt. So actually, you're guilty to proven innocent.
Exactly.
Even though he was exonerated and freed, he's back in school pursuing his PhD. You cannot give that man the 30 days of his life you took away in the humility of putting him in jail. So when you circle back and you start thinking about that, that's what made me go and write a chapter in the Voices of Impact. When we talked about black male mentoring, we uplifted black males, talking about ways they can change, talking about the fact that success comes in many different forms and fashions. They got to find their own way. But some individuals don't know their way. They need us to help lead them the way, right? And I started early and I circled back. The Overcomer was a history of my life. When I wrote that book, it made me think about where I come from and where I was going. I was raised by a grandmother who was twice my mother's age. She was late 60s, and at the time I was 15 or 16, she was in her late 70s or early 80s. She couldn't do anything with me. But the fact was I respected her so much I wouldn't disrespect her. Kids don't do that anymore.
Oh, what you talking about?
Yeah, and the fact is, when I was 2 years old, my mother died. And I thank God now, and I'm not trying to go outside that realm because people get me when I say this. I don't support abortion. The reason I don't, if my mother had aborted me, I wouldn't be here. She was 15 when she had me, living with my mother, my grandmother rather. So I call my grandmother my mother. That's who I always looked at, because by the time I was 2, my mother died. My father was in prison all my life. He got out when I was like 10, stayed home 6 months, went back again. He got out again. I was 17, got out again. You know, I was in my mid-20s. And the last time he came home, he stayed home a year and he died. So pretty much fatherless. If it wasn't for male mentors, if it wasn't for programs like you're producing, you know, what those individuals came forward that I was able to listen to or hear from that voice from the community to say, you are better than what you strive to be. You are better than where you are. Meaning, my wife says that she always felt like, since she was born in the projects, when we met, that she was a product of her community. And she did not want to be a product of her community, because that community was the projects. It was saying that everybody was going to follow that same trend. Grow up, have your couple of kids, get on welfare, and keep that cycle recycling. College wasn't an option. So, you know, I find that we have to be stronger than what we are. Others might reach out privately and show us what they believe, but behind doors, they talk about us. So I found that in my mentoring process, where people will support you publicly, but privately, they talking behind your back. So we have to be careful there, because the demons don't care who they are. They will go out because they want to be in your light because it looks good, but behind your back, they're pulling you down because they become fearful of your success. Sometimes people get too comfortable with you and can't handle your growth. I found that. When I went out speaking, at first it was just minute, very minor. Not very many engagements, not very many offers. When the offers started to ring in and people seen it, I started seeing people start to hate. Well, why you invite him? He have nothing to talk about. He talked about that at the last meeting. But everything we talk about has a message that's going to touch somebody.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
that's what I want to do. My goal is to touch somebody. If I can just touch one kid, change one kid's life, let that one kid see what I went through. Saying you're not alone. You don't need to be in the game. You don't need to use alcohol. You don't need drugs. I did all that. Never used drugs, but alcohol. And I found out that was just a crutch you don't need. And what I like to tell them, Mr. King, put down your fist and pick up
Yes,
the mind.
there you go. There you go.
The fight is not mental. The fight is not physical. This fight we in right now, going into 2025, is spiritual, mental. And if you can't fight spiritually, mentally, and emotionally, you're lost. You can beat anybody in those three areas. With your fist, it just causes pain and destruction. It's a bad choice.
So tell us this. How did your background as a former police officer influence your approach to mentoring youth this past year?
I found myself locking up a lot of our youth for petty crimes, crimes that maybe we should have just taken them home or not putting them in juvenile, because that pipeline from schools to prison is real. I had a problem in the beginning with school resource officers. As a supervisor, I was over the school resource program. And when I went out, I noticed a lot of our school resource officers were just taking the administrative approach away from the administrators at the school. Meaning, back in the day, you got detention. You got sent home. You got in-school detention. You got suspension. Now they call the resource officer. The first thing the resource officer do is write up a juvenile petition and take you to juvenile, or write the petition and put you in the court system. Now you become dissatisfied with the court system, and everything that happened with law enforcement turns you off. So with me, it turned me away. I saw so many areas where we could have worked with our youth instead of putting them in juvenile. I saw so many areas with our youth that we could have changed that narrative with them instead of using physical force, because they use force. Sometimes they don't know any better. We do, right? We're adults. They're children. They're still trying to mature from adolescence to adulthood. And they make mistakes because they see these things on television. They see these different social media posts about how to respond to police, about all police are aggressive, they're dirty, they're no good, so you got to fight back. They end up in juvenile for long periods of time. And my goal was to change that narrative. I was that kid. I spent a lot of time fighting, and when I got to the root cause of my issues, why I was fighting, I was dissatisfied with myself. I was angry at myself because my father was always gone, because my mother was dead, because my grandmother couldn't give me the things other kids had. So what I did, I took that anger out on anybody that came in front of me, and I began fighting. I was suspended from school about 13 times. They told me if I got suspended again, I'd be expelled. So as a police officer, a lot of my friends, when I became a police officer, how do you become a cop? Dog, I remember when you were doing all these things. I say, I thank God that he allowed U-turns. So I made that U-turn. I changed my life. And then I wanted to give what I had back to those individuals, not the adults, because they know better. I still work with them and I still care, but the children is the one I want to work with. Those youth that are committing crimes and don't know why. Those youth that are acting out. And it's a root cause to that end. The input, outputs, and outcomes. They don't understand it yet. It's our job to get to them through your platform. They're listening through your platform. It's our job to get to them and change their life, whether it be in athletics and sports, whether it be in mentoring, whether it be in just having somebody to talk to.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I agree with that 500%. Can you share any success stories from your mentoring relationships or educational initiatives that particularly stood out to you in 2024?
Yes, sir. I've had several kids that I've spoken with that have gotten themselves together and changed their life, telling me that I want to be like you. And I said, don't be like me. Be better than me. I'm still a work in progress. But don't be like me, be better than me. They've gone on and gotten themselves, like I said, I talked to a lot of them at the juvenile detention centers and at the youth detention centers. A lot of those students have gotten themselves out. I've told them how they can change their life to either go into trade school, tech school, or get a good career job, a blue collar job, working, whether it's at trucking companies or other areas. College is not for everybody. Technical school is not for everybody. But I've had a lot of kids, at least 3 or 4, I would say, that have gotten out, that have gone on to get good jobs, changed their lives. And now they're doing the same thing. They're either working in the church as mentors, they're working in communities, and I bring them back to actually talk to the children of the other kids that I come to in my mentoring process to say, here are results of what's happening from what we've done so far. And it's amazing, especially when you see these young individuals that don't believe that change can happen. And when you tell them about change, they kind of run from it because nobody ever embraced it with them. They always just kept saying, you ain't going to be anything. You're going to jail. You're going to stay in jail. Change is possible. And those two kids have gone on to college. Two have gone on to college. One have went into a blue collar working job, have not gone back to jail. They got successful families and they're living good. And the true success behind that to me is them being able to come back and tell their story behind me when I go out and speak. I bring them periodically. I ask them if they want to come, they want to go talk or go back to the facility and talk. And they do.
Wow. You know something? I got to tell you, Dr. Neely, what you're doing is that's more than just touching, because that's something that we need in all of our communities. And, I think that for some people, I think they kind of like have the intention sometimes, but I don't really think that they understand what it is to go the whole 9 yards.
Mm-hmm.
Because if they don't go the whole 9, they're not going to get the results that you're talking about. Because it's those results that make the people feel empowered and make them want to do right.
Right.
So can you tell us, what trends did you notice in education or community engagement throughout the year that impacted how you approached your work?
Well, I noticed that learning never stops.
Mm-hmm.
I'm learning that the more people we can get educated, the better off they are.
Mm-hmm.
Because education is the key. You can lock me up and you can push me down, but what's in my head, you can't take out. Mm-hmm. I tell students all the time, especially with online learning, you can cheat all you want. Mm-hmm. You can get a degree. That don't mean anything. It's the knowledge. And I believe that old analogy that knowledge is power. So the education have really changed. And I think the way it changed is showing students that they can become what they want. If you start thinking about it, when you talk about education, it's not so much as a formal education, it can be informal. So when I say that, police officers, you don't need a degree to be a police officer, GED or high school diploma, but I encourage everybody that I come in contact with in law enforcement to go on and get a college degree. Training is all they need. But if you get that degree, you become better, because at some point you're going to have to go to court and testify. Mm-hmm. And in your testimony, you're going to be standing in front of lawyers who've been to school for 6 years and highly trained. So why are you stopping? Education is just that fundamental key that everybody needs to unlock those doors. Mm-hmm. And so I push them all the time to go on and get those degrees, whether you're in education, or if you're not in education and you're in some blue collar job, welding, plumbing, go back and get additional certifications and look at the trends right now. That's one of the things I do. I ask students to look at the trends. Where's the trends? What's trending right now that's going to pay the most money to get you in the least amount of debt? Because we know right now the trap of Black man is to put him in student loan. Student loan is a lifelong debt. And the only person that came and tried to help us with those loans over the time was Joe Biden. And people talked about it, but Joe put something out there that helped a lot of people, whether you Black, white, green, brown, or Asian. Mm-hmm. He relieved student loan debt for millions of people. Took them out of that debt they'll never get out of. Mm-hmm. And I'm here to tell you, I'm one of them. God bless him. That's the debt that traps us. So I tell students, sometimes college is not for everybody to go get in that debt. What do you like doing? You can make a lot of money in whatever you want to do, whether it's plumbing, welding, truck driving, right? Even now with Amazon delivery, Walmart delivery, you can make money, but whatever you do, don't let it be about money. Don't let money rule you. Let it be about happiness. What makes you happy? I've never had a job, Mr. King, that I wasn't happy in. Mm-hmm. Coming out of college, while in college, I worked at Taco Bell. I loved it. Mm-hmm. I wanted to be a manager, stay in there. Mm-hmm. But I always knew I wanted to go to criminal justice. So coming out, I went to the prison system. I worked in the state prison system for a year. And then I did 22 years as a police officer, working in every area. I loved my job. Mm-hmm. I had so much sick time because I never called in sick. Even if I was sick, I went to work.
Right.
My daughter, when she graduated from high school, my middle daughter, she said, "Dad, I love you to death. You gave me everything." But she said, "You was an absentee dad." I said, what? She said, I consider you an absentee dad. You were never at a PTA meeting. You didn't come to my cheerleading functions. You didn't come to my basketball games. You came to nothing. You gave me money. You worked. You supported me, but you wasn't there mentally, physically, and emotionally for me. That hurt me. That's what really changed me into mentoring. You know, I had seen all the things out in the field, policing. I've seen the kids mistreated. I've seen, and I say this, and I mean it wholeheartedly, I've seen bad police officers. I've seen bad arrests. I've seen situations where I had to say, hey, man, don't do that no more. If you do that again, I'm going to tell on you. We ain't doing that. I've had to pull officers off individuals. But the thing that hurt me the most and really got me into mentoring, my child told me I was an absentee dad. And I realized that my dad wasn't in my life. But I thought giving her the things I didn't have would make her and my oldest daughter better. And it did not. They didn't want things. They wanted me. So now I give myself to all the individuals I come in contact with when I'm speaking, when I'm mentoring, when I'm policing. Even now, I still teach at police academies. And when I go to these police academies, I give myself to these students and I tell them the things that's going to make them better, they're going to make them great, and how they need to use that to better themselves. Policing is a power, but you want to use that power for the greatness of the people, not for your selfishness of yourself, of the people. And that's the same thing that we have to look at when we look at the DA's office in the courts, when they sentencing our young Black youth who don't have money, when they sentencing our youth behind rap lyrics. You know, these are things that really bother me in society right now. And 2024 was a trying time for me as I witnessed these things happen. And in 2025, I know that change gonna come.
So as you mentioned 2025, so what goals do you have for yourself and those you're mentoring as we move into 25?
Well, we want to have better health, better wealth, and a better future. Health, wealth, and a future. Those are the three things, because those are the things that are going to guide us as we go forward. Our faith has got to be there, and our faith has to be strong as we look at the new presidents being elected and coming into office in 2025, the things that he's already talking about. Our faith is going to take care of that, but we got to have better health. I'm looking at young men dying each and every day right now in their 20s and 30s from heart attacks because they're using cocaine, overdosing on alcohol, using heroin, fentanyl. They're using all these drugs. Get off those drugs. Let's get back the way we used to, exercising. Kids sitting in front of the screen all day playing these video games. Let's get outside and make them run, make them play. Better wealth. Wealth comes with that ability to grow mentally, spiritually, emotionally. That wealth comes from there. We got to change the way we get our wealth, right? Again, education is not for everybody. You can get wealth in many different ways. I know people that are millionaires, that are entrepreneurs. My son-in-law went to college, got a degree in business. He worked for a company for a while. He said, I got to step out on faith. I said, man, don't do it. You need that money. He said, nah, I got to step out. And he changed. You know, me and him talk every day. He said, I stepped out there. I'm not making the money I want, but I'm making good money. And I work for myself. That wealth, health, and then that prosperity that we have to believe that things can happen for us. We got to believe in ourselves. I don't think right now many people believe in themselves anymore. That's why they self-medicate every night with alcohol. They self-medicate with pills. They self-medicate with things, have vices that don't align to what their spiritual goals are. We got to get them back to that. You know, when I looked at the Jamie Foxx special, one of the things that Jamie Foxx said without saying it, he said, I asked God, why did you do this to me? I had everything. I had money. I had wealth. I was living good. He said, God told him, you grew up playing the piano in the church. And as you got popular, as you got rich and famous, you forgot about me. He said, so I'm back in the church. I'm playing the piano. I believe in God. I'm getting myself back in there. So sometimes I think what's in you will come out of you. That goodness in you sometimes need to be suppressed to pull it up and bring it out of you, to get us back to where we want to be as we begin to grow and go. That's where our key is. We got to grow to go. We got to get away from being comfortable. We got to learn to be uncomfortable, right? Because when we're comfortable, we begin to become a little complacent. When we uncomfortable, we got that little edge that make us shake every now and then. If I'm uncomfortable, I'm going to start to think of, I'm going to look around. I'm going to be trying to do more. I want to be better. I got to be better. That was always my goal. because I always felt I was less than others. So I felt I had to be better than the next man in order to get where I need to be. They told me I couldn't get here. That's why I went and got a PhD. I didn't want it. I was going to be a cop all my life, but they told me I couldn't get it. If you tell me I can't do something, I'm going to show you differently. And I changed that narrative. I made a U-turn, not only changing my life, but changing my trajectory in life. You know, went out and got additional masters, then went and got a doctorate, and continue to learn daily, right? Learning doesn't stop just because you get a PhD. It don't stop. I'm no smarter than nobody else. That just means that I can master that area which I'm in, and I can do research. So I thank God for everything he's given me. And as I go forward in 2025, I just look forward to greatness. I know greatness is coming. My goals are already set. My long-term goals is to be working for myself. My midterm goals is to be in an administrative role prior to leaving education. And my short-term goals provide wealth, financial security, and just that protection around my family. Family is what we are built around. When you lose your family, you lose everything. So I want to make sure my family is protected first as I begin to move forward.
Well, Dr. Neely, I know that we had set a time. Are you ready to depart, or are you going to stay here as I bring in the next guest?
I'm going to stay here if you don't mind. I just like to sit in and listen if it's okay, sir.
Yes, sir. That would be great.
All right.
Ladies and gentlemen, our next guest is going to be Dr. Stephen Jones. Dr. Stephen Jones is an Associate Dean of Student Success in the College of Engineering at Villanova University. Dr. Jones is CEO of Sage Publishing, that's SAJ, and Educational Services. He's author of 3 books titled 7 Secrets of How to Study, The Parent's Ultimate Education Guide, and The Ultimate Scholarship Guide. Dr. Jones specializes in college access, college readiness, and career coaching. Dr. Jones is an education advocate for K-12 college students and parents. Dr. Jones has hope for our next generation, and he is committed to helping students to achieve their education and career goals. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Stephen Jones. Hello, Dr. Jones. How are you?
I'm fantastic. How are you?
I am just excellent. Thank you for being here on this year-end special. Because your expertise in education also matters a whole lot going forward. So can you tell us, looking back at 2024, what were some of the highlights or milestones in your writing career that you are particularly proud of that you have brought down to your students?
Well, one of the things that I'm always doing is talking with them about their why and their goals, and having them actually write down and think about their why and their goals. So then as we're having conversations throughout the year, they can see their progress. I think a lot of students come to college and they don't know their why. They just know their parents told them to go, or a friend or a counselor told them to go, but why are you there? And I think that drives students. So what I've seen this year is the results of the students who came in during COVID. And for all of the things that they had to battle to get to this final opportunity to graduate from the university, especially in the College of Engineering, which I consider to be one of the more difficult majors for students. They were able to hang in there for that 4 years and graduate. So for me, that was like the highlight of the year, seeing them actually finish, because a lot of them could have actually dropped out when they went through those changes that they went through, 4 years ago.
So how did your experience as an educator influence the themes or subjects you explored in your writing this past year?
Well, that whole conversation that I said earlier, I've been writing books since 2004. And I wanted to do something a little bit different this year. And I'm just about finished this book. And it really talks about goal setting, why, and it's a motivational book. So to get students to think of, what are the steps they're going to take. They say that the average person who starts a goal for the next year will within the first 2 to 3 weeks give up on their goal. And I think it's sometimes it's too books. So I'm trying to make the book digestible, usable for the students, that they can actually apply it. And not only students, but adults as well, that they can apply it to their lives and achieve some of the things. I heard some of the goals that Dr. Neely has, and that's phenomenal. You know, starting the year with a goal and knowing what your distractions are. I'm trying to, in this book, also show them what, or give them opportunity to identify their distractions as they're pursuing their goal. There's always going to be something that comes in the way of you achieving that goal. And you know, it's how you respond to that that's the key. What are the steps that you're going to take beyond that? They say that only 25% of people who pursue, for example, a doctorate degree actually finish. All those other things get in the way of their accomplishing that goal. So my whole life has been, especially since I'm working with first generation low income college students, to help them to achieve their goals. And now I'm putting it in writing to help them go further.
Now I want to make a little comparison here because like the structure that Dr. Neely spoke of is pretty much some of the same structure that you speak of, right? So my thing is, when you're dealing with these kids that are from these marginalized communities, knowing what's at stake for this year going into next year, what are some of the things that you think they need to be looking forward to, or some of the things that they need to understand before this year is up to be prepared for 2025?
I think the thing that they really have to understand is that I didn't arrive here without a different experience, and that I understood the importance of getting help. And so you can't make it into 2025 doing it all by yourself. You need to be aligned with mentors and support systems. That's what I do at the university in terms of helping students to be successful. I make sure that they get the tutoring, the counseling, the guidance, the things outside of the classroom that are affecting them. The instructors only know them when they see them in the class, but there's a lot of things that are happening in their lives, and their families and their communities where they come from, that are impacting their ability to be successful. So I think it's important. I tell all students when they get on a college campus, find someone, a faculty member or a support system there that will help you to get through. You're not going to make it by yourself. And if you're willing to do that, you'll actually graduate. If you're willing to take those steps and get the help you need, you'll actually graduate.
So, were there any significant challenges you faced while balancing your roles as both an author and an educator this year? If so, how did you overcome them?
Time management. So many things that I want to do and have to do. And I'm also in ministry as well. So all those things come together. I guess my biggest challenge is managing my time, because I want to do it all. I want to be everywhere. But you do actually need downtime, what they call it, looking at the way that you live, and then opening doors into time management, into free time, into relaxation time, making sure you have all of those in combination. The same thing I'm telling the students all the time, I have to apply to my own life. That you can't join 10 organizations and expect to graduate. You have to really be focused in on you're at college to get the education and to graduate. Have some fun, yes, but not overdo it.
So, can you share a memorable moment from a classroom interaction or book event in 2024 that reinforced your passion for teaching and writing?
I attended a library event in one of the communities near where we live, and I was really pleased to see the number of young people who still came out and were interested in books. That was exciting for me because so much of everything is done electronically these days. And the parents also came because they have a thirst for books. So even though I've seen times have changed and there are books that can read to you, There are the electronic editions of the book. I think there's still something about putting it in your hand, having someone read it to you. And I think it also was a highlight because libraries are still usable places. That, again, a lot of people have left it behind and said, no, I'm not going to the library. I just get on Google. I get all the answers. But there are librarians who are professionals and they know how to dig for information and get you things that you may not have been able to do on your own. So it's a highlight, and I want to do more of that next year, getting into some of the libraries, meeting with young people and answering their questions and encouraging their parents as well.
Before we get to your outlook of 2025, there are 5 books that I'm going to talk about at the end of this show, but I'm going to actually present these books to both you and Dr. Neely, and I want to know what your opinion of these books are, even if you've read them. My first one is The Color of Law. Have either of you read this book or know anything about this book?
I'm not familiar with it.
Yes, sir. I've read it.
I'm writing it down.
Okay, and so with this book here, Dr. Neely, can you tell me what was the most important part of this book that you got from this, that if you would recommend this book, or why did you like this book? You're on mute.
The thing that really touched me is just the impact itself around law itself and how it's dealt in different phases, right? Where you look at it from a white standpoint, a black standpoint, financial standpoint, a non-financial standpoint. Some of the things I talked about earlier when you start looking at the echoes of justice, how some people have money and they go into the court system and how the court system works for them and some don't. Just like now, think about where we are. POTUS, new POTUS coming in the office, just because he's going to be POTUS, he wasn't POTUS when he was charged. All these charges have been disappeared. They're disappeared. So how does that make people, marginalized people, feel when they see this? People that are set in prison for drug charges, marijuana charges, just say cocaine charges, where this guy had been convicted of 34 felonies and then they all disappeared. Been accused of sex charges, they're going to all disappear. So I think when I looked at the book, the time that tied me in is that how these issues occur and how they work differently for different people.
Yeah.
This next book here is that when you was on the show before, Dr. Jones, this book right here, I went back and I read this book again because I thought about all the things that you were talking about from some of your students and how you were trying to get them to learn and the many things that you did use for them to learn. And when speaking with Dr. Neely early, he spoke of the case here in Atlanta with the DA prosecuting the rapper for his lyrics, right? And so now I'm thinking about free speech for one thing now is that they're trying to totally take away from us. But this book is very relevant right now today. The New Jim Crow. Have you guys read this book?
Yes.
I love this book. I love this book because this is where our kids are not critically thinking and it's causing them to get into so many problems.
Yes.
And it's hard for them to understand for some reason. It's hard for them to understand. And so now this book, now a lot of people probably will say that this is not relevant, but I think it is. This is Stacey Abrams' book, Our Time Is Now. Now, I'm working on a project right now that's not like this, but it's really almost relevant to this because I'll tell you what the title of the book is going to be, The Day We Took the South. I am actually projecting, I am prophesizing when this is going to happen. So it's a big project and it's going to take me a while, but this book helped me a whole lot with that because what Stacey was talking about in this book is that the misogynistic people that look like you and I are problems. You know? And this one right here, The End of White Politics. This is Zerlina Maxwell. Now, I want you to know that she used to be a commentator on MSNBC and actually had a show on Peacock. Now I want you to know they said she was too liberal and they took her off the air.
Hmm.
And so I love Zelina, but she has a podcast that I follow. The best book, Kel, is this one, the 1619 Project. Now, you know, this book right here is truly a truth teller, but it's also the truth about our community. Because of the size of this book, we have a lot of people that will never read this book, to never learn about their history and how this book is relevant to them today as well as it was yesterday. And so these are the 5 books that I think of all I have in my library, which is a pretty big library. I'm quite sure it's not quite as big as the one you got, Dr. Jones, but it's pretty big. And, you know, it really means a lot to know that, because I have to have my books like this. I mean, despite writing, I like to have an actual book. Audio books are fine, but I want the real book. I want to be able to touch it, because when I touch it and I read it, I'm feeling everything in it. You know, so now get back to your outlook, though, for 2025. As we move into 25, what new projects or books are you currently working on that you're excited to share with readers?
Well, I just kind of talked about one of the books is kind of your why, but then I do a lot of posting on LinkedIn, various quotes, and these are motivational quotes for different types, professionals, for educators, for those who are in their career journey. But I'm trying to keep them motivated by giving them some words of encouragement, or I may see a post that I really like, and I'll put a quote into that post. And so I'm writing another book of quotes, and it'll be, you know, have quotes, but it'll also give them an opportunity to kind of express themselves. One of the things that I'm hoping that people who purchase the book will write notes and quotes of their own, insights to their life, and use it as a resource to share with their children, husbands, wives, to share it with somebody else, how they're thinking and what they're encouraged by. And so I'm going to take a number of those things that I've already posted and put them into the book and create a resource around that.
So I want to. So tell us about this for 2025. How do you plan to integrate emerging educational trends into your work as both an author and educator next year?
Well, I hope that there's an education department around next year.
That's true.
This current president is talking about getting rid of the Department of Education. So my battle next year will be to make sure that we have resources for these after-school programs, 21st Century Grants, Upward Bound, Talent Search, Gear Up. There are all these programs that are going on right now that support students and projects them to actually get into a college environment. But it provides a lot of support for them while they're in middle school, while they're in high school. And also these programs help to ensure that parents aren't telling their kids they won't go to college because they didn't go to college. So it's the advocacy for the children to say, yes, you can, to make sure there's enough money available for them and to get them into the steps. Their high school may not have that focus, but these kinds of programs I think are critical. So I see myself engaging with that and making sure that these programs still exist, even if the Department of Education doesn't exist, that they're transferred somewhere where they can still programs can still apply and use that funding that's available. I think it's a big battle for public schools versus charter schools versus private schools. There's a battle at the state level where charter schools receive money when students move from the public school to the charter school, but then there's less money available for the public school. And so there's this, instead of collaboration, there's like a battle between these schools, and their ability to educate our children. Another thing is making sure that there's enough qualified teachers to teach, because you can, again, I look at math and science. A lot of the teachers who are teaching in the school systems are not certified chemistry teachers or certified math teachers or certified biology teachers. They've taken a couple of subjects in that, and now they're teaching the course, but they're not experts in those topics. And so, working to address that, making sure that there's enough professionals who can provide the right kind of education to our children is key.
So, in what ways do you foresee technology influencing literature education in 25 based on trends you've observed this past year?
Wow. I would just, so now at our university, and I'm sure at other universities, you pay one fee and all of your books are downloadable. So you don't actually get a physical rendition of your book. It is a whole lot cheaper for the students to do that. And so I see that as a trend, a growing trend, that more of that will be happening. Students going to school. Students going to school, remember, raise your hand if you remember homework. Raise your hand. Students come home now and they don't have homework. When my children came home and they said they didn't have homework, they still had homework. They had to go read a book. They had to do something creative. They weren't going to sit there and say, I have no homework. But these young people are coming home without homework. They may have done something in school, but I don't know how much of that they've done because I haven't seen it. I haven't reviewed it. So what education are they getting? I think that that's, a real issue moving forward. How are students educated? How is our artificial intelligence integrated into that? What's real? What's not real? What you're publishing, is it yours or is it artificial intelligence writing it? There's a lot. We actually have a lot of policy now at our university around artificial intelligence and how students can use the information that they receive from that. So I think we're in the baby steps of artificial intelligence in terms of where it's going to go. But here's the key: we need to be engaged with it. We need to, as African Americans, we need to be aware of it, engaged, and in the process of its development. So,
as you was mentioning that about the homework, I will tell you, my media guy brought this to my attention like some 2-3 years ago, and he was telling me about when his daughter came home, she would come home and she didn't have homework. And he said, "What do you mean you don't have homework?" "I don't have no homework." He said, "Well, where your books at?" "They're at school." So it was like, he said that's when he and his wife decided to homeschool their daughter because that was just unacceptable. That was just unacceptable. And just to hear that, it's like, I think from the structure and discipline that we had when you and I and Dr. Neely were in school, it was like, you had homework. Believe me, you had homework. And if you came home and didn't have homework, you had some questions that you had to answer, and you had to know why. It wasn't no simple, "Oh, I don't have homework," because they ain't giving them homework. And this downloadable book thing, now, when I was in grad school is when they started that, and I hated that like a passion. Because I love my books, but there's no way I had that much ink to print that many books.
Yeah. These books are hundreds of pages. So
Yeah. What advice would you give aspiring authors who are also educators looking to make their mark on both fields moving forward?
I would say go ahead and get started. And I'm just going to give them a little secret to how I write books. One page a day. Within a year, you have an opportunity to write a 200-page book if you're writing 1 page a day. Because what I found is once I start writing 1 page a day, I get so enthusiastic. Then I write 3. Then I write 5. The next thing you know, a book is together. And
Mhm.
so for me, it's just like getting started. And the other tip is develop your title and your outline. That will drive you in your writing. And then identify, you don't even have to start with chapter 1. If there's a chapter in the middle that really motivates you, write that chapter.
Mhm.
And then, write the next chapter. So keeping yourself motivated to do what you're doing as you're writing, I think is really important, because all kinds of distractions can come in your way.
So, what overarching goals do you have for yourself professionally in terms of writing and education by the end of 25?
Wow. Educationally, I want to, they say that if you keep doing the same thing, you're going to keep getting the same result. So I am looking to expand my consulting part of the business that I have, more one-on-one with individuals who are trying to either change their career direction or to move in a new direction with their career. So I want to spend the year having opportunities to do that, having opportunities to mentor people, having that opportunity to counsel people. And I believe by doing that, that will open up other doors, other speaking opportunities, other ways that I can reach out to students and their parents, if I just take a different approach. So my goal is to reach hundreds of more people throughout the year.
Dr. Neely, that question is one that I would love to ask of you as well. What advice would you give other mentors and educators looking forward into next year based on the lessons learned from this one?
Well, I would just tell them to stay open-minded. As you look at the future, embrace all different avenues. Things are going to come from many different ways, and we have to be ready to deal with any situation that we encounter. Be able to adapt and overcome. It's not going to always be easy. Education is changing. Think about years ago, people talked down about online education. It's cheating, it's no good. When COVID hit, just about all universities went online. Now they're embracing online learning. So change, I say be open-minded to change in education. I've seen a lot, and I know the dean, Dr. Jones, have seen more than me being a dean. I'm just a director, but in my director role, I've seen this university flip. Enrollments are down, programs are decreasing, schools are cutting programs, they're cutting faculty, universities are changing. And one of the things Dr. Jones said earlier, I think you asked him the questions about going forward in academics and how we look at books and things of that nature. I see us more going to open resources. Like now, we only hire practitioners. If you don't have any experience in that field, we're not going to hire you. So good example, when Dr. Jones was saying you got people teaching math that have little or no math experience. My wife is a 30-year educator for Atlanta Public Schools. My daughter is a 15-year educator for Atlanta Public Schools. And they both tells me they see this all the time. And in Florida now, they're just putting teachers in classrooms, paraprofessionals, no certifications, and saying, we'll give you a provisional for 3 years, teach these kids. That's why they don't have homework. They don't know.
Yeah.
They don't
Wow. That's an excellent point.
So I appreciate Dr. Jones. I enjoyed listening to everything that he said. And I just believe what Dr. Jones said, the fact that constant change and being open-minded. 2025 is going to be very interesting, especially now you got different governors dictating what we can and cannot read and what we cannot learn. I don't think we should suppress books. I'm like you. I like the hard copy book. They're taking this away from us. They want us to have that downloaded version so they can control what we read. They can take our history and eradicate it and let us learn what they want us to learn. They don't want us to have DEI because they don't want to see people like you, I, and Dr. Jones advance. Right? They want to hold us back. So I just think being open-minded, being transparent, and being ready to adapt to change in the given moment is what's going to embrace and going to push education and students going forward.
Just to add one more thing to that, the real power in my mind is that if they're going to take the books away from us, they can't outlaw books in our homes. So we as parents need to take responsibility for bringing books into our homes to educate our children, not rely on the school district to provide them with direction. So that's my thought about that.
But so let me just ask you guys this question here as well, because as I look to 2025 and I think about this political agenda of that Project 2025, where they've already worked with the highest court in the land to take away affirmative action, where college enrollment of minority students are down, but now with them wanting to take away the DEI part of that. When they get to that part, do you think that that's going to be something major in 2025 that's going to kind of like try to put walls for all of our students? Because if that court is still there and it makes it that high, that it's going to pass. So what do you guys think about that?
Well, I think we need to. Well, here's the thing: when they came against the affirmative action, I think it was at Harvard or Yale, one or the other. That was for that specific school, not for the entire nation.
Mm-hmm.
But what white folk did was they spread it to the entire nation and made it a rule. There actually is not a law about this, about the elimination of DEI, like they're projecting it to be. And so some lawyers have started to address that this is not the law. The states have different rules around it, but we can fight back because it's not something that was set in stone. It's just the politicians used it as leverage for something that they wanted to get rid of all along, just like they did with affirmative action. They got rid of a lot of the affirmative action, and a lot of African Americans were working in that field when it was eliminated. And so DEI came along and pulled some of them into it. And so now we're at a fight again because of how they make it, the perception that goes along with it. But the one thing that I will say will be maybe it'll push some of the colleges, because the ability of colleges to function very often is based on the 100 or 200 Black students that are enrolled at their college. With those students gone, millions of dollars are gone, and some of the colleges are failing because they don't have enrollments. So to try to prevent us from being enrolled is a problem for colleges in general.
Mm.
And as Dr. Jones said, I truly believe this, and I say it all the time, we got to get in the fight. We can't just sit back and let it happen. We got to get in the fight. We got to embrace race, religion, and politics. In our school systems, and one of the things that I've always experienced, and I've always tried to mentor to the individuals that come before me, we've always had to do more with less. This ain't nothing new. We've always had to do more with less. So it's going to take more people like myself, Dr. Jones, and other mentors, advisors, to make sure we keep these kids on the right track, let them know the greatness of their education, the reason they're getting that education. As Dr. Jones said, why? It lit my head up. He always used the word, Dr. Jones said he write about the why. I write about the purpose. What's your purpose? Because the purpose tell me about your calling. If you know your calling, you know your purpose. And I heard Dr. Jones say he was a spiritual man also. He teach religion. He's in that area. He's in that field. If you know your purpose, the why is going to fall in place. DEI is going to fall to the side, and we will not be held back because we've always had to do more with less. Think about it now. They tried to embrace HBCUs when they put us down for so many years. Now they're embracing us because they see there's positive impact in those schools. Blacks went there because we couldn't go anywhere else. My daughter said, Daddy, why did they have HBCUs and PWIs, predominantly white institutes? I said, because in the past, we couldn't go to those schools. We broke barriers. Now we can. But some Blacks go back for heritage. They go back for that experience. And I finish with this, Dr. King. Students tell me all the time, I teach at a predominantly white Catholic university. They said, the reason I come because I want to see more professors like you teaching me.
Wow.
That's powerful. When I told my wife, I had a couple of students tell me that in one of the mentoring programs I had at the university I started, it was called Black, Brown, and College Bound. It talked about Black, Hispanic, and minority students that we work with in the community to get into college. And we talked to them about what Dr. Jones said. The first thing we talked to them about is that why, and we tied to their purpose. And then we watched them grow and watched them matriculate to graduation. And so that's always been my thing. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Well, I'll tell you, You know, that in itself, I mean, that's powerful in its own words, because I think everything that we have just discussed, up to this point, is more than impactful on the marginalized and underserved communities. But I think the advocacy and the things that's got to get out into these communities is the whole big old story.
Mhm.
Because I think, we can have so many folk, in so many different places that may try to get messages like this out. But, the whole masses, all of the masses need this message. But I think how we use social media, the internet, and things of that nature to get messages out, I think sometimes is reachable. But I think I think what's happening now on a lot of these platforms, and tell me if I'm wrong, because I could be wrong, but a lot of these platforms now are not allowing, even shows like mine to talk about DEI or make that even a show topic.
Hmm.
Well,
I
you
don't
think
want to
about
name
it,
the platform, but I actually got an email.
Oh,
yeah,
what?
they're trying to censor us, right?
Yes,
Mm.
Look at Tiffany Cross on MSNBC. She got too black and they pulled her.
yep.
They said
Mhm.
you're too black. You're not what we need for our audience. You're talking about things that we don't want you talking about.
Yes.
And even now, the new POTUS coming in has already said he's looking at shutting down some of these liberal media sites. MSNBC, you see, they're up for sale right now.
Yeah, I was just about to say they've got money problems.
MSNBC?
Yes.
Yes,
Oh.
sir. They in the hole big time, so they up for sale. They got the whole company up for sale.
Yep.
Oh.
And they've actually pulled a show, maybe two. And it's to my understanding that they're asking some of the show hosts for some money back to keep the network running.
Yep.
Mm.
Rachel Maddow, she's going to take a $50,000 pay cut.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I think just overall for that whole situation, though, I don't think that it's the bad thing of us. I think it's the matter of how we can continue to collaborate and do these things together that has to reach the masses. Because even though we still have those that play gatekeeper, and they're gonna play gatekeeper for life. But
Yeah.
I mean, they can do that. But my thing is, and I still say this to this day, and I'll say it to the day I die, and that is those people that are doing that kind of work, they're on that team, they're on that boat. We deserve to know who they are, because those are the people that we got to make sure that we're careful of, because there's too much sabotaging going on.
Mhm.
And so once a lot of shows and podcasts that have started to grow, have had some saboteurs to come in and to bring them down.
Uh-huh.
So that's like yesteryear, which we know about how that works. So that's why we need to know who these people are. Well, I thank you guys for your time. I don't
You're
want to
welcome.
take up too much of your time, because I'm supposed to have another person to come on. But what I'm going to do is I want to actually, I'm just going to take some time out, because I said I want to talk about these books, because I definitely want people to take the opportunity to buy these books, because I know that they're very important, but there are several books that actually hit in a lot of different areas. Because I have this one book that, when I first read it, it was very profound to me, which is Plural but Equal. And when I read that book, I kind of like flipped my lid, because it was so real.
Hmm.
And I just really didn't know exactly how that would work, but I found quickly that it did a wonderful thing for me, because it talks about how we're in this society where we're supposed to be equal, and there's a majority number of us. But come to find out, that's not going to be on equal grounds compared to our counterparts, because there's always a difference, as we talked about, the economic perspective. And so they're able to get a whole lot more with less, where we have less and can't get more. My next guest is in the back room. Is Dr. Wayne, is Mr. Wayne Dawson. He's also known as Coach Wayne, the VIP coach. He is a distinguished expert in leadership and African American male development. Hailing from Kingston, Jamaica, Wayne transformed failing resorts across the Caribbean, demonstrating his capability to turning challenges into success. I would like to bring Mr. Wayne Dawson to the floor. Hello, Wayne.
Hey, good evening, gentlemen. Charles.
Hey, how are you, sir?
Good. Doctors, how are you doing today?
Good.
Well, I want to welcome you to the show. We just had these wonderful discussions here, and we were just talking about what was happening, today with our education system and within our communities. But I think the aspect that you bring that's so important to us is this about the American male development. So as we talk about that, if you don't mind telling us, how has that been for you as 2024 has started out and ending?
Well, thank you. I just jumped off a podcast myself, a podcast that I do every Tuesday. It's called Midlife Revolution Unleashed. And my focus has been, for the longest while, working with Black men at all levels. Currently, I focus on midlife because we talk about the youth, but the youth, in my mind, is an indication in terms of their states and stage of those who went before them. We have an obligation and a responsibility for reaching back and pulling the youth up with us. And so oftentimes we turn our backs and we're quick to point fingers and blame and say the generation that's coming has lost their sensibilities. And the work that I do, and I worked for almost 2 decades in New York, heading up one of the country's oldest non-for-profit in youth development, and ran 4 locations. And during that period, during the crack epidemic period, when gangs were swearing in brothers because oftentimes our men were in that pipeline, that, prison pipeline that was set up with war and drugs in our community, grandmothers and children and mothers were raising these youth. Today, these youth are some of the men that have grown to midlife that I'm still mentoring, coaching, and guiding. And so last year, one of the things that I noticed, and it hasn't really changed over the years recently, there has been a lot of talk about, in terms of politics, which side do you belong to? And I'm here to say that we have been pimped and disillusioned as a people when it comes to taking sides in terms of the politics in America. Because even though on the one hand, there's a clear play that says there is adversarial folks against us, on the other hand, we have not stressed and asked for an agenda and made people accountable that have asked and gotten our votes. So, people who have been freed over 2 centuries are still having this conversation. I live in the Republic of Florida. So more than a lot of people elsewhere, I see and feel the stress of being a Black man every time I get on the street. And last year here, I would say that I've seen demonstration with several organizations and few that I belong to, where the collective responsibility is being beckoned from leaders to bring and I mean leaders in the community, to bring brothers together, to bring families together. Charles, there's been a war declared on Black masculinity in America. And unfortunately, a lot of the sisters have been blindsided and brought to join that war. And so brothers have to truly establish and stand firm in times such as now, because the reality is, if you destroy the Black family, the first and fundamental organization in terms of community, if you disturb and destroy the family, you're also going to destroy the community and the society as far as Black people are concerned. So Charles, I am for the groups that I've seen forming, and there have been some coalitions. There's been more collaborations, more corporations and networking, because Black folks have come to realize, I think, that the cavalry is not coming over the hill any day soon to rescue us. And as my friend Sean Dove says, we are the saviors that we've been waiting on.
So as we look back at your work in leadership and development for African-American males in 2024, what accomplishments stand out to you this past year?
I think the work on self always continues. And so it's dynamic, it never stops. For me, it's the realization as an entrepreneur, fired corporate America 3 years ago at the start of COVID, burnt the ships on the deck, on the dock, so there's no returning. It's the ever learning for me. It's recognizing that when one door closes, it's an opportunity to open two others. And for me, it's not an accomplishment for last year. It's a continuum. It's a growth. It's an ongoing growth set. And also recognizing that you never stop, even though sometimes you won't be at the end to see the folks win the battle. So I'm always reaching back and always helping brothers to move forward.
Wow, that's a good thing. So what key challenges did you encounter while working on initiatives aimed at empowering African-American men in 2024?
This is ongoing.
Okay.
There's a false narrative, and I call it the Paul syndrome. Most of the brothers that I work with fall under these three constraints in terms of realization for their full potential. One, they don't think they have the possibility. They don't think it's possible. That's the P. Mm-hmm. Two, they don't think they have the ability. That's the A, right? So the first one is learn hopelessness. The second one is learn helplessness. And the third one, which I think the majority of brothers suffer from, and it's generational, is worthiness. W. They don't think they're worthy enough or deserved of having a place at the table. Now, this narrative has been drilled in us for the longest while. And so, unfortunately, we tend to believe this. We watch images on television and we see social media, and we hear it all over that says that we are set to fight each other, that we are set to fail, and everybody comes here and steps on us, Blacks in this country. And I speak here to Black folks all across the diaspora who have benefited from the work, the toil, the fight, the sacrifices that Black Americans have waged for years to allow everybody else to come here. And what happens pretty often is that folks come here, including other Black folks from other territories, and steps on the rung that Black Americans have struggled for, and then turn around and forget the fight. Right. And I think that we have to remind everybody that we're probably traveling on different ships to get to various locations, but we're all in the same boat.
That is absolutely true. You know, I love that niche, that specialty that you do by working with the African-American men, especially at the midlife, because I think, just from my perspective, and you'll be able to tell me if I'm wrong or, what's right about this, but I think that the majority of our men that, you know, when they get to that point, it's like something happens to cause them to lose their way. And so I know that, you know, just in life in general, we have things going on, you know, that can make you feel, you know, like you are just, you know, you're just doing something and you just don't know what it is that you're doing. You are at a point where you don't know how you got there. So when they get to that point, is this where, you know, with the work that you do, that you're able to help them to get that focus and that vision to become who they were in the past, but a better person of what, a better man of who they used to be?
So my business, VIP Transformative Living, speaks about transformation. Transformation is different from transition. Transformation is a total revolution, a change in terms of the self. And for me, VIP is about examining a person's core values, sense of self or identity. And when those two are intact, you find purpose, which is the P. Our purpose is really waiting on us, just waiting to jump out at us. It's divine. Our purpose, we were created with this purpose. Sometimes we spend a lifetime searching for it. And what happens typically, because we are always in survival, not always, but oftentimes because of oppression and white supremacy, we are in a mode of fighting always in terms of survival. And we spend the first few decades of our life trying to just survive, not yet thrive. Usually at about midlife, we start striving for thriving. We start saying to ourselves, we want something more. There's got to be more. We've followed the rules. We've gone to school. We've played the cards the way that we were told. And yet here we are, and we're still not representing in places where we can wield some power and have a sense of true significance. And our lives at that point seem almost just blasé, meaningless in many ways. Because, you know, we probably went to school, the schools that our parents told us to go to, had the education that we needed, got the first job that paid the bills because we had a child and a family, but we never truly got the sense of fulfillment and worth. And at about 40 or so, at about midlife or so, we start saying, there's got to be more. The second half has got to be better for us. And, you know, in the book, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, there's a segment in that book that he talks about sexual transmutation. And what he says in that piece is that men that he studied, and he studied about 500 of the world's richest and wealthiest and most successful men in the time over a 20-year period, right? And he said that what he discovered, what was common for those men was that at about 40 or so, when they got settled in with a significant other, with one woman, one wife, right? When they stopped sowing their seeds, and as young men typically will do, right? When they stopped doing that, they were able to harness that energy, that focus into building themselves to greatness. So typically with midlife, it's an opportunity with your lived experience to stop aging and to start saging, I like to say, and to go back and start doing the things that you were born to do.
Wow. So can you tell us, like, so how is it that you can tell when the breakthrough occurs?
The breakthrough occurs, and again, I belong to organizations, some of which stress the importance of chasing the money, chasing the shiny objects. But I'm here to say that no one ever goes to their deathbed and said, I wished I had earned another day in the office, right? It's about quality, relationships. Those things matter.
Right.
And so when I work with brothers and their families, because I do couples work as well, you know, it's about, for me, it's about getting the family back together. First, it's, and I know that some folks play with the term wokeness, but it's ours. We should own that because we understand what it means. And it doesn't mean what it's connoted as in current political terms. But when we become woke as a people, then we realize that there is more to life than just scoring goals and planting flags. And we can see the transformation. So here is the thing that I work with folks. First of all, you have to have a belief system. Your belief drives your values drives your thoughts and your words. Your words drives your behaviors, your actions. Actions done repeatedly create what we call habits. Your habits give you your outcomes or your personal reality. Your personal reality is your personality. So it starts with a belief. And so the work that I do is to help brothers to remove the barriers, the limiting beliefs, the false narratives about who they are, what they can do and be. Black men for a long time have been measured by their doing, not their being. And so the idea is to transform brothers to start being and becoming whole and healthy.
Looking ahead to 2025, what specific goals do you have for advancing the development of African-American males through the leadership initiatives?
I'm currently working on, I'm doing a lot more work this coming year with reaching out to Black-owned businesses to help to identify leaders and develop leaders. The importance of leadership is not to take the accolade at the top. In leadership, there's typically very little of I in the way of the work. It's we and you and us. And so for me, working with organizations, I get a chance to get in and to help leaders groom other leaders. That's the mark of great leadership, so that you can replicate others and have a system of leaders. And in terms of Black folks, we are represented in terms of corporate 500. There are probably, I think, around 5 or so Black CEOs. That's the problem. And we have to change that.
Dr. Neely, as you listen to Coach Wayne, and he was just talking about the work he does with Black men through his VIP program, how do you think you could coexist that with the program, your mentorship program that you have for adult men?
Oh, I think it'll be easy to do. The fact that he talked about that purpose. When he mentioned the word purpose, I talked about that earlier. He and I talked about a lot of things that he wasn't even on. So I know he didn't hear what I said. I talked about purpose. I talked about the fact that we got to change the mindset of our individuals. I talked about the fact that we got to look at the political system that we're in and address these issues of race, religion, and politics, and take away the divide. Being able to work under his structure and what he's talking about, I think it'd be great for the students. We've always tried to bring other people in to have different ideas, because just listen to me. A lot of times they get pushed away because I'm a former law enforcement officer. They say, "You just talking as a cop." I said, "No, I'm talking as a Black man who's been in this struggle. Going to law enforcement changed my life, and not only changed my life, Coach Wayne, but saved my life. Because if not, I'd have been in prison or jails. I ran the streets. I'm from the projects in the Southwest Atlanta area. I grew up and I'm still in that area. I work in Florida now, so I travel back and forth. So I see a little bit of both. When Coach Wayne talks about being in Florida and the things that he see there, I travel to Florida. I'm there 4 days a week, and I come home 3 days a week back to Georgia. I see the things. I see what the governor has done. I see how he's trying to suppress the people. So it's a lot of things that we can do. All three of us, Dr. Jones, Dr. Wayne, and myself, and you, all four of us coming together to change the mindset of not only our youth, but our adults and the communities in which we're a part of, to make these communities stronger, to make them more knowledgeable, make them more understanding. The book you talked about with Stacey Abrams, putting that book out there, that's a strong book. Black men and Black women need to read that. You and I had a conversation on the side, and we talked about how now the world is embracing LGBTQ. It's like it's something that's normalizing, right?
Right.
They want to break it down to families.
Right.
Dr. Wayne, as you said, Coach Wayne, getting these families back together, showing the Black man they still can be strong and be themselves. A lot of times we take that away from them, we break them. So we want to put the wholesomeness back in them, right? Make the family wholesome again, make the man wholesome again, make the community strong, make the community violent, and believe in themselves. Because Because I think now we got into a point where we've been separated by whether you're a Republican or Democrat, a libertarian or independent. That's who you are. And that doesn't define me whether I'm Republican or Democrat. I'm a man. I'm an American.
Right.
And I'm an educated man in the community that's willing to help uplift other young Black men or any other, whether it's Black men or Black females in our community, to make sure they understand what they need to grow and go. Where we going? We going to the top. You said it's 100% of CEOs, Coach Wayne. We're going to get more. We going to the top. But we got to have that mindset. I told you earlier, and Coach Wayne wasn't on. Remember I said it, Mr. King, I said, they told me I couldn't do it.
Yep, that's what you said.
He said I couldn't do it, Coach Wayne. That's why I went and got a PhD. I didn't want it. I was going to be a cop for the rest of my life. But I realized I had done all I could about trying to make a change in law enforcement. So I got out and got into education and said I can make a change trying to tell those that want to go into the profession how to be better on the other side. So I got into education. And I think now I'm making that change. I see the difference. I've had students come back and told me that they have implemented some of the things I talked to them about, or things that we've expressed, the goal setting, and how they have grown from that. So I'm thankful for what I'm doing. I continue to embrace new opportunities like listening to Coach Wayne, Dr. Jones, and yourself, get new knowledge that I can instill and take back and give to those, individuals, and at some point invite them to talk to them.
Yes, exactly. Dr. Jones, for what Coach Wayne was just speaking of, from the educational perspective, how could you use that information to get across to a lot of the young men that you instruct as to how to be stronger, how to be better, and how to take the things that they get from your university out into the world?
One of the things that we have at the university is a group of young African-American men that come together with faculty and administrators on the campus. And I think that that's been a real positive thing, because a lot of them come from places where there are no fathers in their homes. So they get to see educators, administrators, and other staff that work at a university. And most of them don't think of the university as a place to work. And they then learn that this is a place where they actually can work and then also go out into the world. And our university is a Catholic university as well. And volunteerism and serving the community is a big deal in what we do. And a lot of our young people go out and tutor in schools, volunteer for various projects. I have my own program on campus for high school students. So we're trying to make it a proactive experience, and we're trying to show those who are graduating that they have an obligation to go back into their communities and make a difference. And so that's something that we're absolutely pushing. I actually have to go because we have church tonight.
Yes, sir.
So,
I'm saying, hey, thank you for participating, and we appreciate you, and we'll see you on the show sometime in 25.
absolutely. Everyone have a wonderful 2025 and enjoy all the things that God's going to give you to do and to accomplish.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Jones. Happy New Year to you, sir. Many blessings.
Same to you. Take care. Many blessings.
Coach Wayne,
Yes,
can
sir.
you tell us for 2025, how do you foresee the role of technology evolving within life coaching and personal development strategies next year?
Well, I want to tell you that although I use AI, augmented technology, and robotics in my world, including my coaching, like I developed a course with a partner, a friend that we were working last Thursday, and I outlined the pieces of the course and then ran it by him. And in a 2-hour meeting, we had the marketing strategy on the course done up. Now we have to get in and do some more work. That would have taken us in previous days or months before the application of AI technology. That would have taken us perhaps a month and a half, 2 months. And that would include my VAs that I have employed to put it all together. So yes, But the difference with AI, I think, and we must recognize, is we cannot make it God.
Mm-hmm.
Some people have moved away. I literally mean that. In fact, I was just reading that there is a place in the US that has already started a church where AI is being worshipped.
Stop
Yeah.
the madness.
Yeah. But we have to be mindful, because if all technology really is beholden to us, and we have to make sure that we are the ones that are speaking into it and not the other way around. See, if you have an idiot prompting the technology at the onset, you're going to have idiot responses. My daughter, who is a PhD student, she's doing an internship where she's teaching a class. And she told me, Dad, I feel badly because I'm going to have to fail 2 students. Why? Because they cheated. Now, that's not that everybody else didn't use AI, but they cheated so poorly that they didn't stop to bother checking the resources, all of which were false.
Oh my God.
So they got the AI. AI does that a lot, by the way. It spits out resources that makes no sense, but it gets the material. And so they did that. So again, there's an old saying, garbage in, garbage out. So when you prompt, you have to be mindful of what you're doing. And again, as Black folks, we have to be mindful of how we use AI and how it uses us. I was doing some research on Black males, and after about 5 or 6 trials, ChatGPT that I was using another version of it. It said, "I'm exhausted, change the subject."
Oh my God. So that must have been on a lower level of 3.5, 4.0.
Not only that, a few weeks ago, I was creating videos for some posts that I was doing, and I asked to exclusively put African American male, and it wouldn't do it. I ran it like about 5 times. It kept putting white men in there, or a black with a white man. It just wouldn't put the all Black folks. So again, where's this coming from? Where is this coming from? This is coming from folks who are just like medicine and everywhere else where it's skewed, where beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Education and support in terms of AI has to do with the people who are programming. So if we as a group are gonna use the tool, we have to get in at the onset, at the writing and programming and testing level, so that we are represented. Otherwise, we're going to find ourselves in the same spot we've always found ourselves, which is at the bottom of somebody else's boot. Mm-hmm. So 2025, how am I using AI? Reservedly and with care.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Dr. Neely, at your school, do they have anything in place when it comes to the students using AI?
Yes, sir. We have on each of our course syllabi, there's a note that we put in there about using AI. We don't discourage the students not to use it. We encourage them to use it, but they have to use it properly. As Coach Wayne said, if they can use it to help prompt ideas, to spark curiosity, to get them to thinking differently, that's okay. But what we find, we've had the same situation where multiple students just put whatever they want in the AI, it print it out, they take it, they put a cover page on, they turn it in as their work. And there's no references, bad information, improperly cited, no in-text citations, things of that nature. So it's bad. I think the technology of AI is good for the students, but it's bad for some students. Because some students don't embrace it the right way. They try to use it in a way that's going to help them. Others use it the way it should be used. And I've seen a lot of students use it, like Coach Wayne said. Something that would have took him a month to do, now he got it done in less than 2 days. If you use AI to spark curiosity, right, just to get your mind thinking differently, or to give you some ideas, like some moments. That's what I call it. That's what I use. Every night I throw something in, like Coach said, And I'll just see, because I'm into you, Coach. I write a lot about race, religion, and politics in the Black community.
Yes,
I
sir.
think churches have taken our community away. We've gone to the mega preachers, and they preaching us what they want us to know, right? They're not educating us. They're teaching us what they want us to know. If you look at politics, you're either a Democrat or Republican. I see people fight all the time. What happened to us being Americans, Black Americans, trying to be responsible here, using that division of government to help further America, not bring America down? And then you talk about the religious aspects. We're fighting wars around the country we should be fighting. We fighting over in Iraq, Iran. We're fighting in whatever that Russian country is over there. And we got people here sleeping on the bridges.
Right.
Me and my wife was downtown last week, and we were coming from an event. I passed by 1 million people, and I'm exaggerating, up under the bridges or in bushes with tents. But we sending thousands of dollars across the seas to war. So these are the things we should be fighting. So
that's off 20.
Right, I-20. I was just down, and we was coming back, getting on I-20 right there at downtown. And so I'd say things like that is what we should be looking at. When I put things like that in the IA, it can't give me a response because it don't know. What AI does is giving you back what somebody else or yourself have already put in. It's a repository, and it tries to find what somebody else had already researched or somebody else asked about, and they found that research. So when you talk about just straight Black men, it's not going to give it to you because it's been prompted by society not to give us those answers. So some things we got to go back to old school and continue to research. We got to use those encyclopedias. We got to hit the library, so I just think old school technology always worked. New school technology is just making us lazy.
So, Coach Wayne, can you tell us what trends or changes do you believe will positively influence the landscape for African-American male empowerment in 2025?
Yeah, I think one of my mentors of old, Dr. Leonard Jeffrey from City College, blessed him, he is an elder, still with us. I had the opportunity to study under his feet for many years. Well, not many years, but at City College. And then when he moved on, still kept in touch with his lectures. And he would say the European and Western world functions on death, domination, and destruction. They don't live in a culture where there is the support as seen in the ancient African tradition of the 3 C's, which are cooperation, collaboration, and communion. And what I would say is that there has to be more collusion, cooperation, collaboration, and communion, and community building in the African-American community at a time like now more than ever before. And let me say this. We may think we can't get back into a place where we are excluded from entering certain places, where we're all menial laborers, where we're unemployed in the mass, where we are stuck. Excuse me. But it's not very far-fetched. The people in Germany didn't know that there was a Hitler being created when they voted for him and he was popular. Right? And so we can see that this country could take a turn back 50 years or more if we're not mindful. And so it's not about watching what the other guy is doing. It's about taking care of ourselves, taking care of our family, and supporting and encouraging each other. If you know of an opening on a job and a brother needs one, put him on. Be happy to sponsor him. Walk in the door before and speak that he's coming behind you. Challenge your brothers to step up their game. If you're walking in to a place of business and brothers sagging, showing their underwear, hey, be kind and gentle. And from a position of love, as my wife oftentimes says, speak to that brother. Because when one loses, we all lose.
True.
And so we have to help each other to rise again and take our rightful place in the sun.
So As we go out here, here in into 25, what message would you like to convey about hope and resilience as we transition into a new year focused on growth and positive change?
And I want to make sure that Charles, you can hook me up with Dr. Neely so we can stay in touch.
Most definitely. Do you want to exchange information in chat, or do you want me to just pass cross?
You can pass it on after. That's fine. Thank you.
Okay.
If that's okay with you, Doc. So the message I would like to say clearly is there are no real failures unless you give up, unless you stop trying.
Mm-hmm.
When you hit into a resistant wall, object, thing, person, you must be able to recognize that that's data or feedback. So take all so-called failures with a grain of salt to grow stronger, to be bigger, better, bolder, so you can get up more informed to move forward. But just don't stop moving forward. If you have your eyes on the prize, if you have a vision, just go for it. Typically, you have to experience breakdowns before you really have breakthroughs. As they say, you got to have tests before you can have a testament. So just keep going.
Well, Dr. Neely, same question to you.
Well, I would like to say we got to remember we have to adapt and overcome. The situation's going to hit us. We got to be ready to adapt and overcome. We don't have to get ready. We got to stay ready. You know, as Coach Wayne said, we got to be prepared at all times. One of the things that bothers me when I see young men sagging their pants, I cannot stand this. They got a hoodie, a coat covered up, and their butt hanging out. So I go back to think about, you know, some of the things my wife used to tell me, you know, and she said it was never the government's mission to correctly teach our history. It's our responsibility in 2025 to correctly inform our people. Let's revive reading and storytelling. We've gotten away from that. How many parents read to their kids at night? They're little kids like they used to. They don't. We've gotten away from that. We won't let social media do it. We want to turn on a television and put on a story on the thing and just let it play. So we got to get back to that. That's a powerful statement to me when I start thinking about let's revive reading and storytelling, because it was never the government's mission to correctly teach our children history. It's our responsibility as Americans.
Yes, sir, it is. Well, so as we get ready to close out, you know, I don't know if you guys have to go. I mean, that's fine and dandy, but I've got to go. Or I need to tell the audience about these books, as well as tell them who is the person, the American and Black and White Person of the Year. First things first, I introduced these books earlier. The first book, The Color of Law. This book is very, very informative, and it also does wonders for the mind when it comes to critically thinking to help you, Black man, Black woman, Black boy, Black girl, to understand and to be able to think critically when it comes to the law and dealing with the law, how things really work and how you really see them. Because if you don't have an understanding about that, then you might not make it for the rest of your life. Please, I recommend that you go and buy this book. The author of this book, as you see right here, is Richard Rothstein. This is a must read for everyone that's in the African American community and those that are following this show. The next book I endorse is The New Jim Crow. This book by Michelle Alexander has a new focus as to how Jim Crow has changed in America and how it affects those that are marginalized, underserved, LGBTQ, black, brown, green, purple, anything that's not an Anglo-Saxon is affected. This right here covers that. This too is a must read. The next book, Stacey Abrams' book, Our Time Is Now. Stacey did a good job with this book. And when she wrote this book with a purpose. The problem is most of us missed the purpose because most of us didn't read the book and got caught up in false media hype to end, or what you thought was you ended her career. But she's transitioned to do other things and still is working in the politics arena. This is a must read. Read this book for your own good. If you think about Donald Trump winning the election in 2024, this book is going to give you all the insight that you're going to need to know why you made a mistake if you voted for him. The next book is The End of White Politics. This is by Zerlina Maxwell. Get this book. This book tells you the real purpose as to when Dr. Lily was speaking about party lines. You need to understand what she's saying to you in this book, which is why right now at about this time, I think any of us that's got some sensibility would know that if we're going to form a party, we need to form our own party, because you're not going to benefit from either of these two major parties, regardless of the case. You got those that are hiding, you got those that are out front, but they work together behind closed doors. Read this book. The final book is the 1619 Project. Forget about the size of this book, but if you want to know not just about your history and your heritage, where you are, how you got here and why you are here, this is the reason that you must read this book. And so just in conclusion, I recommend these 5 reads, and I hope that you guys go out and get these books, because I'm telling you, if you don't have them, you're going to miss out. And my next thing is to tell you guys the America in Black and White Person of the Year for 2024. That person is Mr. Ed Bailey. Mr. Bailey is the person of the American Black and White Person of 2024, because Mr. Bailey has been very, very innovative, not just in his community, but in his work. He too, just like what we're sitting here discussing right now, has actually done a lot in the purpose of not only building his community by technology, but also creating parts of technology in the AI arena that most of us are not taking the time to actually see. So I'm saying to you is that, you know, we have a whole new year coming up. And as we start season 3 on January 7th, 2025, it is at that moment and at that time, as we go through the year, for those of you that follow us, please keep track, watch, and tell us as we go through the year of 2025, who has been the most influential person to you that you've seen on America in Black and White that's actually helped you to get that purpose and that sense of being. Because this show tonight, the last show of 2024, is for that very reason. And we had the 3 top professionals that actually wanted to take the time to be here to help you to understand what moving into 2025 is going to look like for you. So we all need to be on the same team with the same purpose, growing the same people to make things better for all of us. So in closing, I want to thank each and every last one of you that watched the show tonight. And I will ask you if you would please support us by going to the YouTube channel and please hitting the subscriptions button as well as the notifications button. You can watch the show as it goes live, or you will also be able to go back and watch not only that show, but any show that you want to see, because they're all on the YouTube channel. I want to thank Coach Wayne. I want to thank Dr. Neely. And I also want to thank Dr. Jones for being here tonight and helping us to go into 2025 with some motivation, some inspiration, and some purpose, and making things happen the way we feel like they should happen for each and every last one of us. I want to thank you guys. I appreciate your time. And we will definitely see Dr. Neely and Coach Wayne in 2025. Thank you all for being here. And you all have a great day. Thank you all again.